welcome back to the channel. I'm David Steele and here's me truck. Yes, this is a Mac R. This is the sleeper version and we have our own custom trailer hooked up behind us. And we are currently in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Why are we in Colorado? Why have we got this Mahusa trailer behind me? Well, today's video is not going to be delivering a load. What we're going to be doing today is looking at a couple of engines, excuse me, and looking at the different shifting patterns and how I tune the engines and the shift points to work in American Truck Simulator. So, specs on this particular truck. Yes, it's a Mac R. We're running a Cummins X12 Efficiency right now. This is the 455 horsepower version, and that has 1700 foot-pounds of torque. And paired up to that is an Eaton Ultra-Shift 11-speed overdrive transmission, and that has a 3.9 final drive and a 0.73 top gear ratio. What does that mean? Well, gearing wise, it's very similar to the stock 10-speed that you get with the game. You just have an extra gear in there, and there's a reason why we've got the extra gear in there, and we'll come on to that in just a little bit. Okay, now I'm using an engine from the Steele Productions Engine Pack. We're actually, technically, this particular engine is from my own custom mod, but it's the same as the one from the Steele Productions Engine Pack. And the reason why we're doing this will become apparent as the video goes on. Well, first things first, let's go ahead and start the truck. Now I've turned down the traffic for the location as to where we are. I'm going to get my lights on. The lights, they work fine. Let's see, do we have sparkly lights on the back? I don't think we do. No. Let's jump into the truck. Okay. Now, I'm going to be driving around in automated mode, and I'm going to essentially, we're just going to ride around for a little bit. So, I'm going to very gently move off. Now, it's moving me off in 4th gear. Now this is the standard shift pattern that you get with the Steele Productions Engine Pack, and this engine in particular, it's set to short shift. Now it uses progressive shifting, and it'll want a short shift. So as I'm using a very light throttle to climb this hill, it's not likely to want to change up, and it's not likely to want to change down. In fact, we're losing a little bit of speed, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, and now we pick up a little bit of speed as we get towards the top. I'm going to lift off, and we're going to turn right here. Now the game is stuttering at my end. I've not restricted the frame rate. I might actually go back and change that. It'll cap itself to 60, but we're not likely to see 60. Okay, so again, really light throttle here. And we're just going to amble along. I'm going to do essentially a great big loop. So there's one lonely car. So it's shifting up nice and early. It's changing gear at about 1250 RPM. Fantastic. Now, progressive shifting. This is a term that you may have heard. Let me go ahead and we'll turn right here. And we're going to pretend we're in Florida and we're not going to stop on the red. Okay, again, really gentle throttle here. We're just going to gently ease around. Yeah, I'm getting quite a bit of lag here. Now see here, it shifted up and put the revs at about the sort of 900 RPM, maybe a little less. Again, nice gentle power application. And it shifted up a little early, and it might want to shift down. No, it still has the torque to pull itself up this hill. The reason why I've got a bit of weight behind me in these trailers is when you've got nothing behind you, the engine will shift. The gearbox even will skip gears, the block shift as I call it. So you might go from 8th to 10th. And I really want to go through these gears one by one. So fantastic, look at that. It's going through them sequentially. Kind of what we would expect. Now as I lift off here, we're going to go ahead and turn right again. Okay, so far so good. David's driving like a grandma, really gentle with the throttle, so on and so forth. I'm actually going to do a couple of things. We're going to turn in here, and I'm going to go ahead and just change my frame rate and lock it to 30. It's a little uncomfortable with it being so janky. Okay, so let's go into here. Da 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 da. Options. Yeah, a bit optimistic to try and get it to run at 60. Okay, fantastic. There we go. Right. And here is as good a place as any to talk a little bit about what we're now going to do. So let's get ourselves in gear. Now, first things first, it's put me in third gear and not fourth gear. Why is that? Well, when you change engine and transmission in ATS and ETS2, it takes the game a little bit of time to figure out what gear you can get away pulling away from. Now again, I'm going to feather the throttle, and it's going to go through those gears sequentially. So see how it's changing up at about 1300 revs. Now let's go ahead and stop here. We were pointing down a hill. Let's go ahead and stop here. Let's try that again, a little bit rough. Now this time I'm going to move off very gently, and I'm going to give it a bit more power. It was using more revs, and it goes from third to 6, 6 to 7, squeeze the accelerator pedal a little harder, 7 to 8, and now we're at full power. So it's going up to 1600 revs, and now I'm speeding. As we go quicker, it's going to use slightly more revs per gear change, and that is the progressive shifting. I'm going to lift off here. Let's use my engine brake, yep, and it will downshift for me. Bit of jank there. So as we go quicker, it's going to use more revs, and the reason for that, and this is the whole point of progressive shifting, is the faster you go, you need more power to maintain your speed. So at low speeds, in low gears, you're really using the torque more than you are the power. Now, this is a gross oversimplification of what's going on, and I'm not a physicist, although I do enjoy sodas. So there are lots of other channels that provide much more information as to how this works. So in very simplistic terms, let's go ahead and just pull straight through it. I'm going to punch the throttle. In fact, we're actually going to get it going a little bit first. Okay. I'm going to punch the throttle now. So first things first, it was like, whoa, and then it downshifted. And off it goes, and it's going to go ahead and use a few more revs because we're climbing a hill. That's the progressive and the adaptive shifting working a treat. Yeah, as we crest the hill, the timing wasn't perfect, but as we crest the hill, it was able to upshift. Right, let's lift off, and you lift off and it immediately changes up. So I've got it to behave, being very jerky with my controls. Let's go ahead and use some engine braking. I've got it to behave fairly close to a real automatic gearbox, and fairly close to how an automated box is going to work. Yeah, and we feather the throttle, it keeps me in 7th gear. Fantastic. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in, and I'm going to switch to the 475 Productivity engine. So we're currently using a 455 Efficiency engine. Let's go ahead and pull in here. See why I'm using steamboat springs. There's lots of space to pull over, and a wonderful right-hand load that I can do with some gradients. This is like a perfect place to be testing this. Okay. Really rough with the controls, but hey. Okay. Truck configurator. Let's jump up here, and we want to be the X12 product. This one here. And it's in the Red Thunder Engine Pack, which is my own custom mod. Okay, so the specs on this engine are pretty similar, at least on paper. 475 horsepower, so 20 more ponies under the hood, but the same amount of torque. And peak torque is produced at pretty much the same, well, actually at the same engine speed. Let's go ahead and compare those two side by side. Let's do this, go with Red Thunder, dum. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, torque's produced, peak torque is at the same engine speed, but the Productivity engine has got quite a different setup for the shift points. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. I'm going to jump back out here, and let's go ahead and run the same trip. So get it started up, put it into gear. So straight away in automated mode, it's selecting 4th gear. Okay, let's go ahead and just feather the throttle. There's actually something coming. Let's see. It's a Volvo, I think. We'll go ahead and we'll just feather the throttle, and we'll just move off and follow that Ovlov. It sounds different. And if you've never noticed that the productivity sounds different to the efficiency, now you have. So see, straight away, it's giving me more revs. A fewer more revs, but more revs. I think the other one was about 1300. In fact, maybe it's only 100 more revs or so, give or take. Okay. It's going to become more apparent as we turn the corner and get up to more shenanigans and mischief. So I'm going to lift off here. We'll tell the world where we're going. We'll go ahead and start to turn in. A lot more vocal with what I'm doing with the throttle here. Okay, so let's see how it short shifts. Not as readily, see? And it's skipping gears because we're under a very light load. And it's the shift points let it use more revs between gear changes. So we're going downhill, and it did shift early there. I'm going to go ahead and I'll lift off now. What it's worth, I will indicate, right? But we're going to pretend again that we're in Florida. Let's kill the speed a little bit. Feather on, like so. Squeeze it just a little harder, and let's see what it does. Okay, so it's happy to use the torque at lower engine speed because I've told it to, but it's also happier to use more revs. Now this changes the character of the engine, so I'm going to go ahead and actually we'll let it keep going. And it's not entirely like for like because I'm not going quite as quick. Yeah, so it clung on to 7th gear and off it goes. Okay, now progressive shifting here. I'm gonna squeeze it a little harder in the interest of not making this a 4-hour long video. And it's gonna use a few more revs. Okay, I'm gonna ease off, we'll indicate. We'll use some engine braking with downshift assistance even, assistance. I may have just invented a new word. And let's do this, the stop test. So we're pointing down a hill. Let's see if it wants me to move off in 3rd gear again. Yeah, look at that. See, it's happy to do 3rd gear. So as we move off, give it a bit more power this time. It's a quite different character. So 3 to 400 RPM between each shift. Far more aggressive sounding turbocharger. Gonna squeeze it a little harder now as we turn the corner. A little harder still. Now I'm at full power. So it's letting the engine rev out that little bit more, and does give it a different feel as to how well it performs. So let's go ahead and ease off here. Oh well, didn't need to ease off quite that much. On the road then, the productivity has another advantage. It will rev more. It has a higher governor. I forget if it's 2000 or 2100 RPM. I think it's 2000. The efficiency revs out to 1800. Those extra 200 revs mean that you've got that little bit more flexibility between gear changes. Now the X12 Productivity appears to be more towards the vocation market. And maybe you need those extra revs, so let's punch the throttle as we go around the corner. There we go. So it downshifted, and off we go. So that was about 17 something RPM, and we're now going up a hill. Keeping it down. Again 1700. So it is changing up a little higher. The faster we go, the higher the engine revs will be when you use progressive shifting patterns in your engine definitions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the corner here, and we're going to drop out the game. In fact, let's hurry along here. this poor little X12 is getting abused. Okay. Let's go ahead and stop here, and we're actually going to go back in, and we're going to change the engine back to the 455. Okay. So, right here, truck configurator, clicky wicky. Engine, I'll just do 455. What have we got here? Efficiency, right? Okay. Let's change that. But now what I need to do is I'm going to drop back to Windows. Go ahead and we'll I'll actually go back to the title screen because it's just quicker to launch. Okay, so whilst it's doing that, let's go back to Windows. Right. So, with any of this nonsense right now, we want to get back into my X12 definition spreadsheet. There we go. And let's open up on the left-hand side of the screen. We have our engine definition files. This will be a little difficult to see, so I may have to zoom in. So future David, if you're wanting to edit this, you might need to zoom in on this bit here. Okay, so we're looking at the 455, and the key thing that we want to look at here are the shift points. So let's go ahead and highlight those. That's them showing here. So our low gear is 700 to 1150 RPM. That's the engine speed that it wants to try and maintain as you move around through the speed range in the lowest gear possible. And underneath that, you've got the high gear range, and that is 970 to 1370. So in top gear, it'll let you cruise along at 970, and it will try and upshift at 1370 RPM. Now, of course, if you're in top gear, it can't upshift, but you get the point. Great. Now, if we go across to the 475 version, let's take a look here. So, a bit of a difference. First of all, my low gear range is 800 to 1325. So that's quite a few more revs at the top side of that, and 100 less at the bottom. So it's immediately trying to use more engine speed. Now the high gear range is 1050, so that is a good. It's almost 100 revs more to 1550. So it's gonna try and prioritize, or it's going to do its dangest to keep the engine running at higher engine speeds. And yeah, its governor is 2000 RPM as opposed to 1800 for the efficiency. So that's the reason why it is behaving the way that it does. Okay, well, what if we were to change this? What if we were, well, yeah, we can change this here and reflect it in the game. Now let's talk a little bit about progressive shifting. So this setup means in the higher gears, it's going to tend to use more revs between the shifts. And I've taken a fair bit of time to go through these engines and test as many transmissions as realistically I can without spending my entire time doing this. And even then, sometimes that happens. To try and get it such that it's a fairly good approximation to what I see drivers doing in videos typically on YouTube. It's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect because I have to do every single engine and transmission separately, and the best will in the world, I'm not prepared to have, goodness me, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of definition files. It already takes over an hour to update the mod pack. And that's with just 80,000 files. We don't want to have 6 million. That would be a lot longer. So, it's an approximation. But what this tries to do is the faster you go, the higher the engine speed runs. Now, let's take a look, or let's change these things around. So, back in the efficiency 455, what if we were to change my low gear and my high gear setup points? So what we're going to do here, we're actually going to go in and we're going to go ahead and say, well, first of all, I'm going to copy this. Oops, well, that's not copying, that's deleting. Go ahead and hashtag these out of the way, just in case we mess that up. So high gear, it was 970 to 1350. We're going to make that 700 to 1150. And low gear, well, that was 700 to 1150. We're going to make that 970 to 1370. Okay. I actually done that backwards. You numpty. God. What like am I? Go ahead and do that. Right. So, what this means is it's going to try and use more revs in the lower gears and fewer revs in the high gears. Now, I'm going to actually adjust this. The high gear point here, 700 revs. You don't want to be trying to pull at 700 RPM in this gear. And if you look across the right hand side of the screen, this is precisely why. Let's switch to the 455 definition here. Yeah, that's not going to be giving you much torque at all. That's less than 800 foot-pounds. So we'll actually change this to be 970 after all. And for what it's worth, we'll make the low gear 700 again. 907, that wouldn't be very good. Okay. So all I've done now is I've just changed the top end of that speed range. So it's going to use more revs in the lower gears and fewer revs in the higher gears. And this is how I used to set up my engines, and I would laboriously check a whole bunch of different trucks, loads of configurations, and so on and so forth. And it took hours and thousands of miles. And this way is both a little bit quicker and more effective. Right, let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to jump back into the game. Let's go ahead and continue career. I'm going to take a sip of water whilst it loads back up the game. Quite a long sip of water, it turns out. Quite a long intro back to the game. Grab my phone, see what's going on in the world. A message from the boss. She says she's fine. Okay. Don't know what I've done, but I'm sure I would do it again if I didn't know I did it. Right, back in the game. Let's go ahead and try the same thing again. So, remember that this time the engine is going to try and use more revs in the lower gears versus the upper gears. Okay, starting me off in 4th gear again. So, let's make like a tree and get out of here. Well, straight away it's using a few more revs. This is the 455. I'm squeezing a little bit more power to get up the hill, just a little bit. And I'm going to hold it about this speed, which is what, 15 maybe miles an hour, maybe. Ease off around the corner. We'll let it. Okay, there we go. So no great shakes. It doesn't seem that much different, right? If I punch the throttle, it didn't change down, it just piled on a few more revs. Okay, well, lift off. We're actually going to do the same thing again. We're going to turn the corner, get the thing going in more or less a straight line, and by that I mean the tractor engine, not the trailer. And it's just changed up. We'll actually be able to speed the build up a little bit, and let's punch it. It didn't shift down. In fact, I'll demonstrate that again. So let's go ahead. We're just over 1,000 revs. Now it might change down now we're going up a hill. Let's punch it. Okay, it did there. But it's not as ready. It's not as ready, able, or willing to shift down. That's because we've changed its behavior here. And that little adjustment makes such a big difference to how the automated transmission systems work. A little aggressive there on the braking. Right, so let's do the whole stop test. I'm pretty sure it's going to go on to move off into 3rd gear. There we go, 3rd gear. So I'm going to just gently inch it forward. There we go. Let's see, is it going to go through them one by one? Yep, 3rd to 4th. 4th to 5th. 6th. So it will still do the sequential shifting that you'd expect under a really light throttle. If I punch it at 1220 RPM, it doesn't change down. And you might expect it to want to change down if it were a real automated box. The driver might.
Slow down.
Okay, so I'm actually going to pull in here, aggressively swerve in there. Or I should have gone for that Prius. Okay. So what have we learned here? Well, we've learned that you can tweak those numbers. In fact, let's actually get back out. Let's jump back to Windows. We've learned that we can adjust those numbers, and it has quite a big impact on how the trucks perform on the road, how the engine and transmissions work. What if we go a little crazy? What if we were to say, well, I mean, let's make high gear, I don't know, let's make it rev up to 1650 RPM, and let's make my low gear even, sorry, and let's make my high gear, he numpty the wrong one. There we go, 1650. And we'll make my high gear, well maybe make it 1350. We're going to give it like a little bit, a few more revs in the high gear versus the low gear. Now what we might expect this to do is give it really strong performance off the line. In other words, when you move off from rest and you've got a bit of a load behind you, such as we do, it's going to pull that much harder, and that's a good thing. We kind of want that. But is it going to do it all the time? Well, I think it will. Let's jump back into the game. And this time I'm going to go in a different direction. I really want to find a hill. I think if I turn left at the top... Well, you know what? I can actually turn right and still go up that hill, and we might just have to stop. We might just make the traffic zero. Zippo. Nada. Dum dum dum. I never noticed how long this game took to load. That's not true, I did. And if you think this is slow, try it with a mechanical drive. Okay, let's jump back into here. What's that going to do in here? Oh, I was going to just check the map. Yeah, we'll actually we'll head to the. I guess we can turn left or right. Right's probably better. All right. So this time we're going to let the engine rev out a lot more than the lower gears. So because we've reloaded the game and changed the engine definition, it wants to move off in 4th gear. So let's go ahead and just gently inch the thing off. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull out onto the road. So straight away it's not shifting. It's at 1500 revs and we haven't shifted up. So squeeze a little harder. There we go. So that gives us plenty of power to move off, but it's not short shifting. And the other risk here is we've gone up to 6th gear, so we had 4th, 5th, 6th. Yeah, I think it's going to do it, but sometimes it'll whipsaw a lot more. There's a bigger change in engine speed between the gears, and the new gear has not got enough pull to go up the hill properly. It didn't do it here because it's going to prove me wrong, because never have a live demo, right? Especially when you haven't scripted it, you just found a location. Alright. This time we'll wait till we're about 1300 revs in 7th gear, and I'm going to punch the throttle open. So now, it didn't downshift. In fact, I mean it's pulling very well, as you'd expect, but it didn't downshift. Yeah, look at it go. I mean, it's flying off. A little bit of a skiddaroo there, don't you know? Okay, and there was whipsawing a little bit. It got a bit confused as to which gear, so we're going to turn the corner. We're going to bring the thing to near. Well, I guess we will actually stop, or nearly stop. Right, so I'm in 3rd gear, and let's punch it off the line. So holding it with the foot brake, switch to wheel camera, give it full power. Not doing much, and let's let go of the brake. See, it block shifted there, went to 1000 revs. Great big hole in the torque delivery there. So yes, you can get reasonable acceleration off the line, but it's harder to tune this just right, and this is why I would take many hours just trying to get the shift points just right, and I was never entirely happy with it. It was always a compromise, and it worked out okay. So 1150 revs, punch it wide open, it does downshift, great. That works for me. And then what I do now is I need to get, I say need to, I want to get the speed up. I didn't do it, officer. I want to get the speed up to show what happens at higher speeds when it changes up. Now we're at full throttle here, so it's not going to really have the kind of shifting behavior that we might expect. So let's lift off the power a little bit, like so. I'm already in top gear, aren't I? Huh. Alright. Well, we'll do a truck version of the numpty shuffle. Oh, the brakes work well. Look at that. Okay. I don't know if we can fit turning around here, but we're going to try. Yeah, there we go. Great. Okay, let's get my speed up a little bit. Oh, look at that. You see, it bulk shifted me from 6 to 8, I think, and like straight into a flat spot in the torque curve that's about the size of Holland, or about the size of Texas, depending on where you're from in the world. Okay, so we're in 9th gear at 30. I'm not at full power. Yeah, and if I punch the throttle now, it does downshift, yeah, which is good. But we got that much readily with the original setup. So we're letting it labour just a little bit up this hill.
You even listen to me.
Squeeze a little bit more power. Yeah. And I wouldn't expect it to upshift just yet, but let's see what it upshifts. Now I'm at a fairly medium power setting, I would say. Come on, when's it going to shift? Wow. Okay, it is now good. Are you want to shift now, or are you gonna, there we go. So we shifted up about 46 miles an hour. I think he was going up a bit of a hill, and that's why we're struggling. And I just punched it, and we downshifted. So what we tried to do here was we tried to give the X12 Efficiency a more aggressive shifting pattern. And what I'm going to do now is jump into the stock 475, stock as in Steele Productions Engine Pack stock. We're going to leave everything at the same. We're going to jump, we're going to swap the engine around, and we're going to drive like a loon again. This time we're going to use the more aggressive gear shift point setups. Now without the cargo on the back, it would very, very reluctantly, in fact this might be a little rough. It was a lot of rough. Without the weight on the back, it really does not want to downshift. Oh, we didn't cause any damage, it's fine. See, one lightly used Macar, lovingly cared for, apply within. Alright, let's go back to 475. We've got lots of 475s there. That's the one we want. Okay. What we're now going to do is drive it the same way, so pretty much like we stole it, or like we're in a Detroit Diesel Series 92. And see what happens. Oh, didn't even use the e-brake, or the parking brake. Right, so we're gonna let's move off. I guess we'll nothing coming. So we've got a more aggressive shifting pattern enabled, but this is progressive shifting as opposed to I'm just using seemingly random numbers and hoping for the best approach, which is not how I did it originally, but you get the idea. Alright, so I'm actually going to turn right up here. We're going to do a whole numpty shuffle turn, and if you watch my Cold Waters submarine videos, you'll know what I mean by numpty shuffle. It's typically a rapid change of depth and direction, but seeing as we can't dive in this truck, well, I mean we could, or we did, when we pulled in, but... So I'm just driving it around at full throttle right now, and if this is how you drive in ATS, you're not going to notice one jot. Well, you're rarely going to notice a difference in shift patterns. It's going to behave a little differently at full throttle. Okay, let's go ahead and steer around here. That cop's gone, so I won't get a ticket. See?
Too fast.
Engine brake on. Let's stand on the anchors. So, ahoy mateys, drop the anchor. Yeah, those brakes work fine. Right, let's go ahead and turn around. Now, meanwhile, my false teeth have escaped my mouth. Okay. So I'm using less than full power right now. So again, it's sort of a medium power setting. And it's revving out to about sort of 1600 RPM, which, you know, was probably what we would expect here. And it sounds like it's working hard. If I lift off, so what we're doing, 9th gear about 30. Right, we'll try 10th. Yeah, it doesn't want to do that. Okay. Go a little quicker, and let's use 10th. There we go. Now, if I punch the throttle, it's going to downshift. I didn't punch it, we went up a hill. And it downshifted for me. There you go, look at that. Let's get it back up to speed. Oh, okay, come on. Because I'm using it doesn't want to cruise at such low engine speed. Okay. Alright, let's try now. Punch it. There you go. It downshifts to 9 and holds it to what, 1700 revs? Very happy with that. I'm going to keep it nailed down here. Actually, we're going to turn off again, I think. Let's do the whole stop thing. By down to 3rd gear, we'll gently move off. So it's using more engine revs than the X12 Efficiency we've programmed it to, and it's not using as many revs as the X12, the modified X12 Efficiency. So to my mind, this way of driving with this particular X12 is a more balanced way. More balanced way of driving. Okay. That's that. Now, there's a setting in ATS that you may have wondered what it does, or maybe even played around with it. So, let's go into settings, and as I recall, it's in gameplay. It might be interface. Let's go in. Yes, here we go. Okay. So, your adaptive automatic transmission. You have got disabled, turns the whole thing off. You've got normal power, and you've got economy. Now, I happen to be using high power mode, which is why that accentuates how aggressive the transmission is when it comes to changing gear. Let's go down to normal power mode. Let's go back into here. And let's see what difference that makes. The normal power mode will tend to blunt how adaptive it is at changing gear, and it's going to change gear that little bit sooner. So now it's sort of aiming for 14-ish hundred RPM as opposed to 15 to 1600 RPM. Is this better? Is this more efficient? Potentially it's more efficient, but it's a little less performant. And it's how I generally drive around. I don't tend to use high performance, but I don't tend to need to. I think if you feel the need to use high performance mode and do adaptive shifting, you probably need a more powerful engine. See how it will readily downshift as it starts to lose speed. I'm going to punch the throttle. It doesn't need to downshift, and let's lift off. Now punch it. Yep. Now as we lift off the power, it selects the next gear up because it doesn't need the power that the current gear was able to provide it. Let's go ahead and turn the corner. And then economy mode, you can guess what that does. It really tries to short shift, and that's not a short person joke. Right, so we're going to feather the throttle as we climb up this little wee hill here. That was what, 1450? There we go. And it's still building up a little bit of speed. I'm going to squeeze the power a little harder. What I don't want to do is have it downshift, but I want to keep this speed going. Alright, now, when we crest the hill, I'm expecting it to change up without changing the throttle. Okay, we're There we go, look at that. Beautiful. That's how my passenger car drives. If I punch the throttle at a slightly lower speed, so like now, it'll change down. It didn't. It's trying to prove me wrong. Try that again, shall we? There we go. Okay. Well, for its full completeness, what I'm going to do is just go in and just have a few seconds on economy mode, but I mean really you can guess what that does. Economy mode like so, and what this will do is this will try and minimize your engine revs as much as possible, and it kind of makes it feel a little bit inert. Now this is often what the X12 Efficiency feels like anyway, but here we go. So let's, again, we're just gonna, yeah, so it is changing early. I'm not using much power, and the productivity engine still wants a few more revs than the efficiency. That was about just over 1400 revs, and we're actually going down a hill, so it'll do the same again. Yep, there we go. Does this save a little bit of fuel? Potentially. And if you punch the throttle open, which I will do as we go around the corner, let's punch it at this lamppost. Punch. See, it doesn't change down. It will change down, but generally speaking, it's going to keep you in the high gear, and that's where you could potentially save a bit of fuel. I suppose I really should do a video showing the difference you might see in fuel consumption, but I don't think I want to do that today. Okay, that was a whistle-stop tour of some of the reasons and some of the behaviors that I've tried to program in to every single engine in the Steele Productions Engine Pack. As long as you use adaptive shift, and as long as you use the transmission in automated mode, you should benefit from how I've tried to program these shift points. Now, why do I spend so long doing this? It's because I'm an enormous nerd. Well, that too. Because I like to drive these trucks in ATS, and because I'm the kind of nerd that will listen to YouTube videos of other drivers driving their trucks and trying to see if mine sounds the same. And when it doesn't sound the same, I will go in and look at it, or I'll bookmark it and watch that video later and try and understand where I'm getting it wrong. And after many hours of doing this and a very suspiciously nerdy looking YouTube history, here we are today. Well, hopefully that's explained some of the passion and the thought that goes behind the Steele Productions Engine Pack. It's a labor of love. I really enjoy building engines. I am not a sound engineer, so a lot of the criticism I receive on the engine pack is, "It doesn't sound like the real thing." Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. And I'm not in a position to be able to fix that right now, but I would welcome the help. So if there's an engine in the pack that you don't like the sound of, you can let me know. Or you could maybe try and find an engine that sounds the same, and maybe reach out to that author or authors and say, "Hey, we'd like to use this sound. What do you reckon?" And then put me in touch with them. Not to say it's going to happen. Most people say, "No thanks, David. I get money off it." Oh, okay. In which case, if there's enough demand, I'll see if I can put together a guide as to how to use these torque curves and shift points with someone else's far better sound than the ones that in many cases I'm using. Well, I hope you got something from that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you a bit of insight into the obsessive nature of the Productions Engine Pack. And it's a very selfish mod. I create these because I like these, and that's what I want to drive. Okay, well, I guess all that remains to be said is thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Hope to see you next time. Like, subscribe, dislike, leave a comment, share. Do as you will, and I'll see you later. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.